do we want to live in an
Just
America? Do we want to live in an America where the CIA,
hold
the
on.
FBI, the DOJ, the FDA are all beholden to the president?
Yes.
So that is central. This is why I call it a dictatorship. Is because if we're talking
It's
about
not going to be a
if we're talking
dictatorship.
about
It's not going to be
centralizing
a
all of this
dictatorship.
power. Okay, good. Just no like n words. No, crazy
Oh
shit like
no.
that. Okay, well then we're
Oh
good.
no, dude.
Okay.
I'm more
What?
respectful than that.
I appreciate that. So what's the disagreement?
Well, the disagreement is specifically that you're saying that specifically, like you're saying he wants to terminate the Constitution. Um, that Truth Social, it's very interesting because me and my friends were debating someone else about this, and they actually brought up a tweet. Like it looked like a tweet. It was formatted like a tweet, and he showed it as a tweet. He said, "This is the tweet." So I'm wondering if this is like some strange shill. But other than that, you're saying that he wants to terminate the Constitution. And in the tweet, he said it's more of a reactionary thing. Like, if this happens, this should happen.
Okay.
But
So wait.
he's
So
not saying specifically that he himself specifically wants to do said thing.
so
Go ahead.
we would agree that the text of the post would say that if the election had massive and widespread fraud, then it would justify the termination of the Constitution, right? That is what just the verbiage of the post. That is what it says, right?
I want to look at it again. Could you give me the link to it
Yeah.
so I can read
He since deleted it, but I mean, unless we're in a position like it's widely covered, I don't think anybody denies that he ever said it.
Who knows? Because things can be made. And
Well, we have like screenshots. We
yeah,
have people from the House condemning him, saying
like
it.
we're living in the world of AI, so
Well, this was from
I'm not
2022. So
I'm not saying that it's AI. I'm not saying that, but it's cautionary.
so
Like, is there a screenshot of it or
yeah, I'm posting it right now.
okay. So with the revelation of massive and widespread fraud and deception, and working closely with big tech companies and the DNC, he's talking about the big tech companies and the DNC. Like, he's worried that those specific groups are corrupt. If they
Mm-hmm.
were corrupt, I'm not saying that they are, but if they were, wouldn't it be a good
Be
thing to
careful.
keep them from having those sorts of
So
powers?
okay, so if they were corrupt, theoretically, yes, it would be good to keep them from having those powers. But would you agree that it would be good to keep them from having those powers by extension of terminating the Constitution?
Well, the specific thing is a massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules, regulation, and articles, even those found in the Constitution.
So
Found.
was he saying that because he was advocating for that, or was he just saying that as like a thought provoking, just throwing the crazy idea out there?
Um, Given the way that Trump just says things at times, and I do agree that sometimes he's a little, ugh, like, yeah, he shouldn't have said that. Like, for instance, the whole debacle of can we destroy a hurricane with a nuke?
Yeah.
That was more of a question to his cabinet. I think he was actually like joking, but I hope he was. But other than that, like Sharpie Gate and all that stuff, like that was his first time being president. A very first time. He had never been a politician. He had never experienced politics. And like, imagine what that does to a person. He had 1,000 appointments when he was elected president. Imagine going through 1,000 appointments
So
and doing that for the first time and not really knowing the people that is picking. Because
we can talk about the effectiveness of his presidency, but that I want to make sure that we get to the bottom of this initial
yeah,
thing first.
the
So
bottom of
when
him wanting to terminate the
yeah, so
he
so when he says, because we don't disagree that in 2020 he was making a lot of claims about the election being stolen from him. Even on the campaign trail in 2024, he was saying that the election in 2020 was stolen from him. So we agree that he does think that there was massive and widespread fraud and deception amongst the voters. So if he has been campaigning on there being massive and widespread fraud to the voters, and then he tweets out, does this massive and widespread fraud justify terminating the Constitution so we can rerun the election? What do you think that implies that he is in favor of that, or do you think he just said it?
you see, this is why reading things instead of hearing someone say it is very like iffy, because sometimes people say things to you in front of you and mean them, but sometimes people just write things down because they write things down.
I feel like
And
this is being obtuse, if I'm being fully honest. So if he's been saying that the election was stolen from him, and then he says, with the
yeah,
revelation of massive and widespread fraud, do we throw the presidential election results out and declare the rightful winner, which is clearly me, or do we just rerun the election? That he's clearly advocating that if he's saying that massive fraud would justify that and that there was massive fraud.
given like I'm not going to say that there was, because there were a lot of whatchamacallit, I'm sorry. Um damn it. The
It's
word is
okay. No
escaping
pressure.
me.
It's okay. No pressure. We're
Um
okay.
no. The justice system. Okay. It has to do with the justice system.
What
There
about
are
it?
a lot of it's the same thing as trials or like things going on in the law that they were investigating voter fraud and they didn't come up as voter fraud, but some of them were ongoing. There were ballots found on roads being burned and other things. So,
So we are saying that, assuming that there was massive fraud, we would be okay with Donald Trump theoretically terminating the Constitution to rerun the presidential election then. So that would be a justification for terminating the Constitution. Not saying that he didn't say it, just saying that he did say it, but it was valid.
I'm not validating what he said. It's just a possibility.
It it,
Because,
it
like,
truly does feel like you are validating what he said.
it's just a massive fraud of this type and magnitude allows for the termination of all rules. Like, it doesn't specifically say that he's going to do it, and those found in the Constitution, like, it could be a specific part of the Constitution
Okay, let's say
that
that it was just a certain part of the Constitution. Would you be okay with Donald Trump terminating that part of the Constitution in order to rerun the elections?
not terminate it, probably change it, but who knows?
Unilaterally, without the
Because
amendment process, you would be fine with Donald Trump
be-
doing that.
there would probably be a process to it,
The process
not
is
that
the amendment process, but Donald Trump has almost nothing to do with that. So And
Yeah,
clearly,
it
he's
would
not
be up
saying we should
to.
propose an amendment to make it so that we can rerun this election, where he's saying that we should terminate all rules, regulations, and articles, even those found in the Constitution. Because and one of the chatters pointed this out too. They said that the Constitution falls short at addressing what this problem is, but the natural
Yeah, it does
extension of
fall
that
short
is,
because it was
but the
written
natural
a long
extension
time
of
ago.
that the natural extension of that is saying that the Constitution can't meaningfully address this problem, so we should be able to work around it. So then we get back to the same point that we're not saying that Donald Trump didn't say it. We're not saying that Donald Trump didn't say that he would want to terminate the Constitution. We're saying that he would want
But
to
did
terminate
he
the
say it
Constitution, but it would be
specifically, though?
good. Like there would be a good reason to do it.
I know, but I'm wondering if he actually specifically was saying that though or not.
I feel like
And
I feel like this
I'm
amount
not
of
going
charity
to assume
I feel like this amount of charity would never be given to anybody ever. Like if he's saying that there was fraud for fucking
charity.
4 years straight, if he's saying that there was fraud for 4 years straight, and then says that fraud justifies terminating the Constitution, clearly he's justifying terminating the Constitution.
When did he say that it was 4 years straight?
I'm saying he was saying that there was fraud in the 2020 election for 4 years straight.
When? Like when is the
Between
4 years part?
between 2019 and even more than that actually, between 2019 and 2023. If we want to just cut it at this tweet, then we'll say that he was saying it for 3 years straight, because he started saying that the 2020 election would be rigged at the beginning of the 2020 election and then on to the end of 2022. So we can say 3 years straight, but still sowing the idea that there is massive fraud in the 2020 election, and then saying that that massive fraud justifies terminating the Constitution. That clearly implies that he is justifying terminating the Constitution.
Can you show me when he said that it's been like 3 years?
I'm not saying it's been 3 years. I'm saying if he started saying that the 2020 election was fraudulent at the beginning of 2020, and then he tweets this out in 2022, at the end of 2022, do we disagree that in between that line he was saying that the 2020 election was stolen?
He posted this on 2022?
Yeah, December 4th, 2022, he tweeted this out.
Why?
That's a great question. I don't know why he would ever tweet it out in the first place. But this is what I'm saying, though, is that if he's justifying terminating the Constitution and all of the people fall in line because they think it was based, this is a step towards authoritarianism.
If I don't know why he would tweet this, then, and you don't know why he would tweet this, then I don't really know.
But we know what the tweet is saying.
Seems strange.
We know what the post is saying, though.
It just doesn't specifically say that he wants to do it himself.
But okay, we are being so endlessly charitable right now. Like I feel like if Joe Biden or Kamala Harris tweeted out this exact same thing, they would instantly be disqualified from running, and rightfully so. But for some reason, it feels like Donald Trump can't do anything wrong.
I would also question if that's what they meant. I'm not giving specific charity to Donald Trump. What I pride myself in, not pride, but wish for, is more truth and more solid facts. Because what I'm hearing is this is a specific interpretation that you're giving. And I also have my own interpretation.
Okay.
If someone else read this with absolutely no knowledge of the Constitution, they would probably believe you more than they would believe me.
Okay, then give me your interpretation of what you think Donald Trump is trying to say with this post.
Let me see. Massive fraud of type magnitude allows termination of all rules, even those found in the termination of all rules, regulations, and articles. This is a to me thing. Like, you know, when someone says to me, this should happen, but they don't actually, they're not actually going to do it. Like, have you ever experienced that before?
Yes, and I know where you're going, but the problem is that I don't want to elect somebody to the highest office in this government that wants to terminate the Constitution, the only document that governs his job. I don't want
I
that.
just,
I don't want that thought to even cross the mind of whoever I'm electing president.
I don't think he will, because the last time that he was elected president, people said that he was going to become a dictator, and he didn't.
Well, he did try to illegally hold on to power.
Um, he didn't, and I would love to get into that argument also, but I don't know if is it against TOS to mention Jan 6 at all
Um,
or anything about it.
I don't care. We can talk about Jan 6. But to be clear though, I'm not talking about the riot at the Capitol. I'm talking about the Eastman memo when I say that.
The Eastman memo?
Yeah.
I think I've heard of that. Okay.
Do you want me to explain it to you? I'm not trying to talk down to you. I'm not trying to talk down to you. I'm like, do you want me to explain what it was?
You can explain to me what it was. You can also send me something. I could read it, and you can save yourself the energy.
Um,
Or if you actually enjoy explaining it, then go ahead.
it requires some context, but yeah, I can. Let me drop you a link to the memo wherever I have it stored, and then
I understand context. Yeah, context is good.
Yeah.
Always good.
Mhm. I need to see where I have the second, because there were multiple drafts of the Eastman memo. I want to give you the second one, but I need to. First one. This one. Oh. Mm,
You're not worrying. I'm patient.
okay. So here's the link if you want to read through it. It's a lot of very legally dense verbiage. So, but here's the idea. So Donald Trump thinks that the 2020 election was stolen from him, and that the state certified electors should not have been certified by the state governments, right? So what Eastman, one of Donald Trump's private lawyers, proposes to him is that they have Mike Pence do one of multiple possible outcomes with the electors. So what they want to do is they want to send another slate of electors without the state's approval to the joint session on January 6th to be counted, and they want Mike Pence to either unilaterally choose Donald Trump's electors instead of the state certified electors, and then make those the electoral college votes and give that state to Donald Trump. They want him to either do that or say that neither of the electors can be certified because there are dueling slates of electors, and then just not count those electors and send the election into a contingent election in which the House decides the president and the Senate decides the vice president. Or they want to send those electors back to the states for recertification. All of these in the Eastman memo, it says that all of these would require the violation of the Electoral Count Act, but they would be doing it on the grounds that Article 2 would supersede the Electoral Count Act, even though that the Supreme Court had multiple times ruled that the Electoral Count Act was constitutional. So it would be necessarily, it says in the memo that it would violate the Electoral Count Act, but they're just banking on the fact of the Supreme Court ruling in their favor.
Is that specifically what it says?
Yeah. The verbiage is something along the lines of like this is where we would diverge from the procedures in the Electoral Count Act. It doesn't say in the act, but it's referring to the Electoral Count Act.
Electoral Account Act?
The Electoral Count Act, the ECA.
Count Act. That was in 2022.
The quote is no. The Electoral Count Act was
It's
reformed.
1887.
Yeah, the Electoral Count Act was reformed in 2022 after Donald Trump tried to game it to re-elect himself.
The act aimed to minimize congressional involvement in election disputes instead of placing the primary responsibility to
It lays out the procedures by which the electors are counted.
The act set out procedures and deadlines for the states. Okay. Aren't there emergency slates appointed if the first slates aren't able to vote themselves?
So I think the precedent for that is Hawaii in 1960. But the emergency slates or the alternate slates that were sent to the joint session were approved by the respective state government. In that case, Hawaii's governor, or I don't know if it was technically the governor, but the person responsible for certifying the electors certified the electors in 1960 in Hawaii. So that was the historical justification that Eastman gave. But the difference is that Eastman and Trump's electors were never certified by the state government, and they were asking Mike Pence to unilaterally certify them on January 6th. And by the way, this is what he was indicted. This is what the federal indictment covered, and now Donald Trump will never face trial for any of this because he's just going to be able to pardon himself whenever he wins re-election. Even though we have all of the subpoena documents and the Eastman memo from the J6 committee, he will avoid any legal repercussion from this because he will be able to pardon himself. Doesn't that feel a little like shitty?
It is interesting. I would have to look into the slates and the emergency slates and the slates that Trump wanted to appoint. This is the part of the debate that I will not tell you that I know a lot about it. I will not
that's
act like I do.
Yeah, and you're completely allowed to not know about it because the way that our electoral process works is fucking boring, and it's supposed to be unimportant. That's just supposed to be like stuff that Washington politicians work out. But the problem is that Donald Trump tried to subvert this process to have the vice president make him the president again, which is like a wild overstep of presidential boundaries. And then he calls for the termination of the Constitution. I think that this is a clear and present authoritarian threat. And the problem is that it happens so high up in the process of how Washington works is that it's so complicated that not a lot of people really want to spend the time of day figuring it out. But they also don't want to listen to the special counsel, for example, indicting him and laying this whole plot out. And they don't want to listen to the House Select Committee with all of the subpoena documents laying all of this out, or all of the lawyers that said Donald Trump shouldn't be anywhere near office, or his former vice president for saying that he shouldn't be anywhere near the office for this specific plot, for trying to pressure Mike Pence to go through with this plot. So the problem isn't that people didn't know about it. I don't have a problem with people not knowing about it because it's a pretty complicated thing. The problem is that not only do they not know about it, but they won't look into it, they won't notice any of the red flags, and they won't listen to the people that actually do look into it. That's the problem that we're facing in this country, is that for some reason expertise doesn't matter to people anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Which I'm not saying I'm an expert either, but I was able to parse through. I've heard lawyers talk about this. I've heard multiple debates about this. I've listened to Mike Pence talk about it. I read the indictment. So I'm not an expert, but I got an idea of how it works. Yeah.
You are informed in what you are informed in.
But I think this is much more important than almost any other issue facing the country right now, because like we have we just reelected a president that has clearly shown that he is willing to break federal laws to put himself back in power, and now we've reinforced with our vote that not only are you allowed to do that, but you won't face any consequences for it.
Mm. Do you think Jan 6 was an insurrection or a riot?
It was definitely a riot. The specific verbiage of insurrection, I like. There's a bunch of qualifications that I don't really care about, like the semantics of if it meets or if it doesn't. But
I know the Supreme Court was like, this is an ambiguous definition, and we can't really use it to apply to this case.
yeah, here's what I'd say about the actual riot at the Capitol on January 6th is that whether or not Donald Trump incited the riot to go to the Capitol, whether or not he was being like coy and like trying to cover his ass, or just being wildly stupid and irresponsible like he has kind of shown that he is, I don't know. I think I kind of lean towards he was just being really irresponsible. But the problem is that once they went to the Capitol, he also clearly didn't care about the violence being taken part in at the Capitol. And I think that it was used once they were at the once they were at the Capitol, it was used as a pressure mechanism on Mike Pence to go through with the plot that I just laid out. That's how I view the riot at the Capitol.
I actually talked to I'm just going to call him a P-boy. You should know what that is.
Yeah. We're not on TikTok. You can say Proud Boy.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
he was a Proud
YouTube's
Boy.
a lot less strict on all that shit.
Yeah, the way me and my friends that were debating on TikTok lives, we're very constrained. We could not.
No,
We
I join a lot of
basically needed
people's.
to
I
talk
get
like
it.
children.
Yeah,
We
Pew
had to talk
Pew
like
and
children,
Unalive, and
basically.
yeah, no, we're on
Yeah.
YouTube. We can say whatever the fuck we want. We can say kill. We can say gun. We can say pedophile. We're good.
Okay.
Especially since I don't monetize, so we're good.
Yeah, he was a Proud Boy, and he basically said that they weren't supposed to go. They were told not to, but they did because they were drunk and angry. And given Trump's demographic, that makes a little sense. Don't you agree?
Yeah, but then that's why I'd say I don't know if he was directly inciting as much as he was just grossly irresponsible.
Because like I would say that men, when they get rowdy and they hear something like a rallying cry to do something about a supposed injustice, would make them do something like that. But just like how a person, like an insane person, isn't liable for what they do because they don't know any better.
Sure.
Like, I think I would apply it like that. But other than that,
I would say that this does work against it a little bit, because by saying that, you are kind of by extension saying that Trump
he
supporters
incited it.
well, that Trump supporters who went to the Capitol that day, or the Trump supporters that thought the election were stolen from them, like kind of lose all agency because they're so mad and so drunk about the election. Which I don't think I don't think it makes Trump or the Trump supporters look good in that situation. But can I ask,
those specific ones didn't. So yeah.
Can I ask a very hopefully straightforward question?
Go ahead.
So do you agree that after people had already been in the Capitol, I think it may have been after Ashley Babbitt had already been shot, but the first tweet that he sends out is not for them to remain peaceful, not for them to go home. It's that Mike Pence didn't do what was necessary to save our country. Does that not feel like maybe a slight implicit endorsement of what's happening at the Capitol?
I honestly have no idea, man. I'm not going to say that I do, because like that was a crazy thing that happened there. And the other thing that Proud Boy said that is that if they actually had planned it, if it was 100% planned, then the power wouldn't have been transferred.
Yeah, probably. But also keep in
His
mind
words.
that Donald Trump
But
also couldn't have planned it, because
but
then we would have seen it coming from a billion miles away.
yeah, but if that's the case, then hold on. I just had a brain fart.
You're good.
Um, shit. I just lost my fucking train of thought. Okay, given that the transfer of power wouldn't have been transferred if it was an actual insurrection.
I would say not actual insurrection, a planned insurrection, but yeah.
Um, that would mean that the people of the country actually thought that they were robbed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
I absolutely think
it would have been justified to do so.
I absolutely think that the people thought that the election was robbed from them, and I still think people do think that the 2020 election was robbed from them. The problem is I don't think Donald Trump thought the election was stolen from him.
I voted for Donald Trump in 2016. I didn't feel like I was robbed because, for one, I was a little bit more ignorant back then. I didn't really look into our candidates very much, and that's my fault. And I did that with Obama too, and I regret it every single day because I'm Hispanic and I saw what he did. But other than that, I would say that if something like voter fraud or anything like that, to me, I'm not saying that Trump wants to do this, but some things need to be done for certain bad things not to happen. And I
But
know that's a bit of a hyperbole or whatever you call it, but
well, no, what it is it feels like a justification for authoritarianism. Like the thing is that
it won't
the,
be authoritarianism.
well, if we're talking about terminating the Constitution to rerun the 2020 election, that is absolutely authoritarianism. Or like trying to clasp onto power in violation of federal laws. That's authoritarianism.
But he doesn't specifically say that he wants to terminate all the Constitution. Just some things found in it.
So so let's say that let's say that I'm on the street and I get cut off, and then I tweet out, anybody who cuts cars off on the road deserves to die. Would we probably agree that I'm calling for the person that just cut me off to die?
No.
Okay. I feel like 99% of people would agree that that is what I'm calling for.
I just think that you're angry. Not you specifically, but in that
instance, no, yeah, in that hypothetical.
And when people are angry, they do say things. Not true. Like, I am a believer that people say what they mean when they're angry, but sometimes people say things just to hurt the other person, and they don't if it's not actually true. Well, or then they don't actually mean it. It's just reactionary.
At that point, I would also make the point that if Donald Trump is getting so mad about the 2020 election being stolen from him that he's trying to make Democrats mad by saying he would terminate the Constitution, then I still don't want that person in the presidency.
I would ask you, wouldn't you be angry?
Yeah, but I mean, listen, I think that there was a certain amount of issues with the 2016 election. I think there was a certain amount of issues in the 2016 election, but I think that Donald Trump still was the rightful winner of the 2016 election. Just because I think that there's problems with a certain election, that doesn't mean that we have to uproot the things that founded this country in order to hold on to power. I don't think that that's how this country should continue to function, and that's why I'm really happy that Kamala Harris has already conceded the election. She's not waiting for a bunch of like fucking lawsuits to litigate every single part of the 2020 election. She just conceded, because even if it wasn't a legitimate election, she lost it, and that's it. That's it.
I just think that she was a weak candidate.
I agree, but I'm saying
they could have gotten.
I'm saying that
someone
just
a lot better.
just because you think that the election was stolen from you, that doesn't give you the right to terminate the laws that guide the election. We can make new laws and make changes to the laws afterwards, but you can't become a king to rerun the election because you think that you lost. Which, by the way, was not corroborated by any of the people that investigated it. So I think that is a step towards authoritarianism, and I think that by putting him back in, we not only said that that was fine, but also he should not face any consequences for it.
All right. How will I respond to this? You gave the car cutting off example.
Mhm.
And you said that the people who read it would think that it was a call for the person to die.
I'm saying, well, no, I'm not saying that it's a legitimate.
Hold on.
I'm not saying that it's a legitimate. Well, no, let me just clarify real quick. I'm not saying that that is a legitimate death threat, but I am saying that that is in relation to the person cutting me off. Just because I didn't say the name of the car that cut me off, that doesn't mean that I'm not talking about the car that cut me off. That's what I was trying to illustrate with that hypothetical.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the person who read it. Like, they read it. I'm talking about those people. It's up to them to interpret it how they want to, and in the end, sometimes they can be wrong. And in this case, I believe that it would be best to wade the waters a little bit and see if it does happen. And if it does happen, the people of the United States have the power, and the guns, and the like. You have no idea about our militia.
No, if we're just waiting to see if he actually is going to do what he said he was going to do, I don't want to get to the point where we're threatening an actual dictatorship before we take any sort of action against it. Especially since I don't know if you saw the results last night. It was pretty heavily towards Trump. So if he ends up terminating the Constitution, I'm not even certain.
Democrats switched over.
I'm not even certain that a lot of Trump supporters would even have a problem with him terminating the Constitution, because, like I said, I've gone on a lot of these TikTok lives, and every single time it devolves into, okay, he did say that he wants to terminate the Constitution. He just thinks it's based because the election was stolen from him. So, like, I think that even if he did want to terminate not you, but I'm saying a lot of Trump supporters that I've talked to have justified it. So I'm saying if he did terminate the Constitution, I'm not going to rely on the U.S. voting population to rebel against him, because I think most of them would think it's based. And this is how, like, dictators have been rising in the current day, is by they get democratically elected and then they slowly chip away at the democratic systems that hold him, that check their power. They chip away at the checks and balances, and that's what Donald Trump has been doing. By we saw him do like a masterclass in authoritarian action in 2020, but now he's not going to get any repercussions for it.
Okay. Can I ask you if I've been pretty respectful to you? Like, how do I differ from the typical Trump supporter?
I think that you are a little more honest, but I think that ultimately, I feel like there are a lot of jumps that most people would naturally make if it wasn't Donald Trump, that people just aren't willing to make because it's Donald Trump. I agree that you haven't called me names, and I respect that, but I feel like most people, if Hillary Clinton had tweeted out this terminate the Constitution tweet, she would never be in Washington ever again. Her career would be fucking over. But for some reason, Donald Trump can do, he can say grab him by the pussy, he can try and overturn the election, he can do all the bullshit with Jeffrey Clark, he can do all the pardons to Manafort and Roger Stone and lying to Congress, but for some reason, he's just unstoppable. Like, there's 6 different scandals that Donald Trump has taken part in that would have ended any other politician's career, including this time terminated the Constitution one, but people just don't care. And I feel like there's some wall in a lot of people's brains where if Donald Trump said it, it can't be bad, or he just didn't say it, and we'll jump through like a billion hoops to say that he didn't say it, even though I think he pretty clearly, the implication is very clearly there.
I did say that I do believe that he does say some unhinged things, and I do concede to that. Given that, another brain fart. I think it's this fucking Overwatch music. Hold on. It keeps catching me.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, I turn it up. All right. You say all these things about him. Yes, he probably did all those things. And yeah, there are trials against him and all that. And I would say, like I already said, that this is literally the first time that I was very serious about looking into both candidates. And I didn't know Trump at all. Like the first time that I saw him was in the Home Alone movie, and after that I didn't know who the heck he was. I didn't care who he was. But then he ran for president, and the first time I just voted for him because I didn't really like Joe Biden.
Well, he was running against Hillary Clinton in 2016.
Oh, wait, 2016. Oh yeah, I didn't like Hillary Clinton at all because of the things that I heard that she did. See how ignorant I am about previous elections.
Okay.
This one though, there are a lot of claims on both sides. Like Kamala's a communist, Trump's a fascist. And the thing that I noticed the most is that Trump was literally bullied. And that doesn't justify what he's saying at all. But I've never seen anyone go through what he has and still wants to do what he wants to do. And and some people say that, yeah, he's a narcissist. He doesn't actually care. But I watched him talk a lot. I watched Kamala Harris talk a lot. And I noticed that he actually cares. He actually wants to talk to people.
I'll tell you what, I think Donald Trump should have been bullied like 10 times harder than he actually was. Like,
he got shot though
by a Republican. But I want to be.
It doesn't matter who he was. He got shot.
Well, okay. Here's what I'm talking about.
And anybody can. And you are an American citizen, and you are able to do whatever you want in this country, and you can. And anybody can go register as something, but it doesn't actually mean you're that. Because
here's the problem: is that whenever
I think on my voter registration, I think I'm still a Democrat.
Whenever we're talking about like, oh well, he's been bullied by the mainstream media or all of these pundits, so we say he cares, but like he deserved all of that and more. We can't be at a point where we shouldn't even know his plan on tariffs right now. There shouldn't be a single interview that Donald Trump does that doesn't ultimately lay out the entire plot in 2020 and the terminate the Constitution thing. We shouldn't be able to move forward on anything that Donald Trump wants to do before we ensure that he will respect the bounds that holds him as the president. But we don't even have insurance. Like, here's the problem. Do you think you can say with certainty that Donald Trump will not try to expand presidential power?
I don't think he will.
But like,
because he didn't do it last time.
Well, he did do it last time. He did the Schedule F thing. He tried to put the fate of the election in Mike Pence's hands.
Schedule F.
Yeah, the converting of the 3-letter agency employees into political appointees so he could fire them at will. which is
Oh,
historically
don't
not
do
a
that.
not a thing that presidents can do, or trying to put the election in the fate of Mike Pence's hands. Like, this is clearly centralizing power in the
Do you
executive.
still do you still want the three-letter agencies?
Yes.
You do.
Mhm.
You want the FDA?
Yeah.
You want the ATF?
I'd have to look into the ATF. I don't even know what ATF stands for.
Okay, hold on. The
But
Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms
I
and Explosives.
I think, regardless of if you agree with certain departments existing, we don't want the president to have sole control over them. That's and
I
regardless of if we do or not, actually,
I don't like
that
the
is
federal
that is
government at all.
necessarily, if we want the president to have unilateral control over the three-letter agencies, that is necessarily centralizing power into the president. So he did
like,
do that.
I don't like the three-letter agencies at all. What have they done that is good?
Try
Because
crimes.
they are
The DOJ.
I don't know. I don't think it's that, like, the ATF has shown so many times that it is very incompetent, and also those people that are on, like, in that group are being paid exorbitant amounts of money.
Do we want to live in an America? Do we want to live in an America where the CIA,
Hold on.
the FBI, the DOJ, the FDA are all beholden to the president?
Yes.
So that is central. This is why I call it a dictatorship. Is because if we're talking
It's
about
not going to be a dictatorship.
if we're talking about
It's not gonna be
centralizing
a
all of this
dictatorship.
power, if we're talking about
that's your interpretation of it.
if we're talking about centralizing the DOJ's power to be solely in the hands of the president, how is that not centralizing power?
He wants to get rid of the Board of Education. What do you think of that?
I think it's stupid, but that's sidestepping the issue right now. If we want Donald Trump to be in control of the DOJ, how is that not centralizing power to a wild degree?
Hold on. The DOJ is
the Department of Justice, the one responsible for trying crimes.
Department of Justice.
This is
I don't
this
think
is
he wants
literally
to do anything to the
this is
DOJ.
literally state police. What we're talking about. If we put the DOJ in the hands of Donald Trump, but that's what the
I don't think he wants to change anything. Did he say anything about changing the DOJ?
Schedule F was allowing him to hire and fire people at will who have job protection within the departments like the EPA, the DOJ, the FDA, firing like lawyers and scientists and replacing them with political partisans. This would be, by extension, putting the DOJ and the FBI and the EPA all in the hands of the presidency. This is what Project 2025 lays out as well. So, like, and what his Agenda 47 lays out as well is when conservatives talk about taking on the deep state, this is what they mean. So this is why I call it a dictatorship, is because we haven't drawn a hard line at saying he wants to terminate the Constitution. We haven't drawn a hard line at him subverting democracy and putting the fate of the election in the vice president's hands. We haven't drawn the line at making the three-letter agencies beholden to the presidency. I feel like if I listed out every single part of a dictatorship, we probably that wouldn't be a hard line against Trump. This is what I'm talking about. This is the problem that I'm having right now.
I'm still in the opinion that it's an interpretation. But other than that, I just think that there is massive corruption within the three-letter organizations of the government.
Is there not massive corruption within Trump's campaign?
I don't think so. But other than that, he's going to appoint people to basically sit someone in front of them and ask them, what exactly do you do here? And if they find that this person hasn't really done anything to benefit the government, then they should be fired. because they should not be given these exorbitant amounts of money. That could be going to other things. For instance, the American taxpayer.
So we are right now, we are talking about centralizing more power within the presidency. We are just making justifications for it.
Not giving it to this president specifically, but giving it to a new branch.
Making a fourth branch of government?
Um, what is it? I forget what the thing is that Elon Musk and Ron Paul are going to be part of. Do you remember what they're going to do?
No, I don't remember.
Basically, they're going to look at the checks and balances of the government and see any disparities that should be looked at.
I think that's
Like basically,
terrifying. I think that's
like
terrifying.
basically, if they see a large amount of money going nowhere, they stop it.
Do you think they'll stop money going to the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency?
Not the EPA, the FDA.
Do you think they should have the power to control funding on the EPA? Because
Not the
that's
EPA.
well,
not the
well, if you're allotting that Elon Musk can control funding to the FDA, you're allowing him to also control funding to the DOJ, the EPA, all of the other three letters. So would you be fine with someone that the president appointed controlling the funding of the three-letter agencies, which is a job that's supposed to be delegated to Congress?
They're doing a terrible job.
But because Congress is doing a bad job, you're talking about centralizing the authority that's delegated to Congress in the executive branch. Not the executive branch, just the presidency.
I don't think it's actually centralizing towards him. It's centralizing towards the people he wants.
The people
to
he
take care of
appoints.
things. Every president appoints who they need to.
They appoint the heads
Or
of
who
the
they
departments, but the heads of
Yeah,
the
they do.
departments, the
He
heads of the
does.
departments don't have that kind of control over their departments like that. There's a reason that the
They
people,
don't.
there's a reason that the people in these three-letter agencies have job protections. It's to keep from having hyper-partisan three-letter agencies.
Mhm.
But that's what Donald Trump is trying to get rid of, those federal job protections, to create hyper-partisan three-letter agencies, to centralize power at the presidency.
Mhm.
Which is like a huge fucking issue.
Mhm. All right. Let's just say I do concede that Trump wants to get rid of certain parts of the Constitution. He wants to centralize power.
Okay.
Like, given his track record, his last presidency, he left the country a little better than what Obama did.
In
There
2020?
are like not at the beginning of COVID.
Okay.
I'm not going to um include COVID in his presidency because that is a crazy thing to happen to your country. And given that that was his first time experiencing it, it was the first time that America had experienced a pandemic
Yeah, sure.
in a
Yep.
while.
Yep.
Like, we were scrambling to do whatever we could to like get things done. Like, he got the poke,
Okay, but let's
but
let's
in the
go back
end,
to the train of thought you were on. So
yeah,
if we grant that he wants to terminate parts of the Constitution, he left the country in a better place than it was under Obama. What does that lead to?
like, what would be like? I just don't.
Because this feels like a justification right now.
I'm not justifying. I'm just saying that if I were to concede, then what?
Then I think that if you were to concede to that and you're still a Trump supporter, then we should not be having an argument based off of like who would be the better president. We should be having an argument of, is democracy or our representative republic a better form of government than dictatorship?
Mhm. If it's going to be a dictatorship, let's see if it happens.
Okay. I don't think we can dig any deeper on that. I think this
Yeah,
conversation has hit an end.
yeah, it's an end to the conversation. I'm adamant that this is just a personal interpretation of something set out of like whatever Trump was feeling at the moment.
Can I at least get
Because
this? Do you think my interpretation is reasonable?
in a way, no.
Okay.
Because given how people feel about Trump, like Orange Mad Bad, sometimes I think that people just want to throw things at him and see what he does.
Well, do you think it's reasonable to say, hey, we have a bunch of court documents and a bunch of legal documents saying that he did try to illegally overturn the 2020 election? You can read the Eastman memo; it's in there. And we have him trying to expand presidential powers over the three-letter agencies, and then he comes out and says that he'd be in favor of terminating the Constitution. That,
He didn't say that.
in my
But
interpretation, he does say that. Is that
in
with his track record? Is that not a reasonable interpretation of that post?
but
Because
the
because
track
he has
record is
already
a
objectively
the
shown
track record
authoritarian like
the
red
track
flags.
record is that he was a good president for those 4 years that he was president. And I think that he will do it again. That is my interpretation.
Okay. Maybe we can talk about the issues of his first presidency, or if you want to stick around, I mean, I stream every once in a while. You can
You
hop
can
back and we can talk another time. But I think now is
like
a
I don't want to annoy you because I know like Trump supporters annoy you or that's a bad assumption, but I don't know how you feel.
it's just
Um
it's the typical arguments that Trump supporters give. It's not Trump supporters necessarily. Like, I don't think you've been annoying. I don't know where the wall is. I don't know where the wall between us is, because I feel like all of the interpretations I'm making are like very fact based. Like, I feel like I have documentation to back up everything that I'm saying, but for some reason there's just a wall between us to where like the interpretations just can't match for some reason.
I think it's the fact, do you give people the benefit of the doubt?
Only if they've earned it.
Trump didn't earn it
No,
in your opinion. No?
no, Trump has not earned the benefit of the doubt.
Okay. To me, he has, and I think that's the wall.
Okay.
And we have 4 years. We just need to let things lay out the way that they need to, or the way that they are going to. Because for one, I thought things were going to go buck wild today, but they didn't. And I'm very happy about that.
It's because lefties know
But
how to lose an election.
um, the only instance that the Trump supporters didn't like go wah 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 we lost, it was Jan 6th, and that was a bunch of drunk frat boys.
Well, it was also Donald Trump trying to engage in illegal activity to make the vice president choose him to be president again. So it wasn't just the Capitol riot. It was also all of the extra legal activity from all of the Trump campaign lawyers as well.
Yeah, I'm not going to act like I know like anything about that. I will concede that you know more than I do. But I would love, I think I heard someone argue this with another another Democrat. Well, what are you, a Democrat or a liberal?
Um, I don't know if those two terms are juxtaposed. I wouldn't consider myself a Democrat because I don't like a lot of the politicians that are in the Democratic Party right now, but I'm a liberal, and I'd consider myself independent of the parties.
Okay. Do you believe in NAP?
NAP?
Yeah, NAP, with the aggression approach, or the non-aggression
The non-aggression principle? I don't
principle.
know. I'd have to look into it.
Basically, if you don't believe in NAP, you're not a libertarian.
Well, not I didn't say libertarian. I said liberal.
Oh, liberal. Okay. Oh, there's a. Okay. Hold on. Liberal.
Liberal, I'm pretty sure, is just like the fundamental agreement that like all men are created equal, democracy is good, free markets are good. Like,
Respect or accept behavior or opinions different from one's own. Huh? Oh. Wow.
no, that's a different. That's not of like a. That's not
Oh,
of a.
okay.
That's not the political. Yeah,
Believing.
yeah. Here's the one. A supporter of
'Cause
political.
that is not what I've experienced.
The the political uses, and this is the same Google page. A supporter of a political and social philosophy that promotes individual rights, civil liberties, democracy, and free enterprise.
Mm. All right.
We used to be in a country,
I think
and
we didn't.
I
Yeah,
remember this
we
in my
didn't.
I remember this in my government class. I remember when my teacher used to say like, "Oh yeah, technically both parties in the U.S. are liberal, but only one gets called liberal because it's like Americans use the term differently." But now I don't even know if both parties are liberal anymore.
Yeah, and I agree. A lot of things have changed. Is it for the better?
Fuck no, absolutely not.
Because I'm here willing to talk to you. I've been very respectful. I haven't raised my voice or tried to interrupt you.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like having a conversation is very important. Because, for one, if you don't talk to the person that you think is bad, you'll never know if they actually are.
I agree, and that's why I'm on here doing debates and stuff. That's why I put the Discord link in the chat. But the
And
problem is,
that's very good. And
the
that's good.
I
That's
think
good.
the problem is that our so-called free market of ideas is being corrupted right now by a lot of bad actors. That
I
yeah, I don't know.
really felt like as the election was going on, I felt like I was able to talk less and less. Do you feel me?
Yeah, but I have a feeling that's probably going to be the case with any
Because
election.
yeah, like I had libertarian friends. One of them was a communist because he keeps saying sees the means of production and he scared me. But basically, I got into a debate with him and it devolved into him calling me a retard. And I didn't try to interrupt him or raise my voice or anything. He just kept calling me a retard. And his girlfriend started calling me a retard, and the other person within the argument started calling me a retard. And basically, I left that friend group because you don't do that. You
Yeah,
don't berate your friends just because they have a different political opinion. Like what I said was 3 in 4 women are mentally ill. Yeah.
okay, okay.
And they got very angry.
I think here's the problem: is that there's respect in a conversation, and then there's respect as a person. So like, you can be theoretically respectful in a conversation. You can like not raise your voice. You can be very calm. You could be like not interrupt anybody. But the problem is that the thing that you're hitting at is almost inherently disrespectful. So like, if we can have a very civilized debate over whether or not gay people are savages, but at the end of the day, if I'm arguing that gay people are savages, that's not a respect. Like we didn't have a respectful conversation. And I think that's the problem that I've had with a lot of Trump supporters is that they'll very calmly and politely tell me that like trans people are mentally ill or that Donald Trump is actually like fighting against all of the liberals that are ruining this country. And it's like, okay, you said it very calmly and I appreciate that, but you're saying that I'm ruining the country. So this hasn't been a respectful conversation.
You're saying I'm ruining the country.
Yeah, but I also wouldn't argue that I'm being particularly respectful. Like I don't respect a lot of the thought processes that Trump supporters go through. So I mean, but I wouldn't claim that I do. I wouldn't claim that I'm being respectful in this conversation.
Mhm. Well, this has been very interesting.
Yeah.
I find you to be a very intelligent person.
Thank you.
and you're very articulated. You know you know your stuff,
Thank you.
and I only know sort of surface level things,
And that's fine.
and
And I
I
don't
will
expect
concede to that.
everybody to have the same
Do
like.
you
Listen, I haven't been diagnosed, but my autistic girlfriend thinks I'm autistic. Like I not everyone's gonna have the same level in politics as I do. You know, that's
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I am also I also think I'm autistic,
I
and
wouldn't claim
there
that I am, but a lot of autistic people sure do think I am. So I mean,
yeah.
yeah.
It like uh, I do go through these bouts where I get very passionate or very sucked into something, and I think this election did that to me
Hmm.
at near the end of it because I really wanted to make sure that I was making the right decision, and I felt like I did, and I know you felt like you did, and that's just going to be how things are.
Hmm.
But in the end, me and you are still Americans. We still live in this country together,
Absolutely. And
and
listen,
we have
for these next 4 years, I wish Trump in the presidency nothing but the best. I just don't have a lot of faith for him. Like I truly hope that I'm completely wrong and Donald Trump isn't an authoritarian and that all of our structures stay the exact same, and that the economy booms or whatever. But I just don't see it happening.
would you bet on it?
Um, no, because I think we would the bet that we would have to have is if Donald Trump had attempted to do it, not whether or not it was successful or not. And I think our understandings of an attempt on our democracy are very different. So I don't think I would bet on that. But
Because I think Trump really wants to uphold the Constitution, like the First Amendment for one,
he shows it in a really
because
weird way.
yeah, but the thing is that what Tim Walz and Kamala Harris said about misinformation, it scared me because I think it was either Britain or England that did that, where if someone says something inflammatory on the internet, the police can come get you and they'll ask you, "Hey, did you write this?" And they're like, "Yeah." They take you away. And they were saying that they want to come over here and get the people who have said inflammatory things here and take them back so that they can experience trial. I don't think that's okay.
I'd have to look into the specific problems, but whenever I heard Kamala Harris or Tim Walz talk about like restricting anybody's like freedom of speech, it was usually on the grounds of election misinformation, which I mean is inherently more defensible than just like plain hate speech. Whether or not I would be in favor of that, I don't know. Because
Because
clearly something has to be happening because or clearly something
like
has to happen because like Russians
un,
cannot keep coming into the fucking country and like lying about our electoral processes or like creating bot farms to infiltrate our huge social media age. Like something has to be done about that. I just don't know what.
mhm. Yeah, it's a scary thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like me saying that 3 in 4 women are mentally ill, that would probably be interpreted as hate speech if enough people say that it was.
Do you agree that,
And
that saying that is disrespectful?
no, because it's true.
Okay, can you link me that stat?
Okay.
I'm not gonna go like hardcore debate bro over it or whatever. I just want to see where you're hearing this.
According to the National Institute of Mental Health, 26.4% of women in the United States had a mental illness in 2022.
Do you know the number of men?
Let me see. The
It's
Oh,
okay.
it's a little lower.
How much lower?
Let me see.
Because if it's still 1 and 3 or 1 and 4 or whatever the number you listed, I mean, like that's probably
26,
why
that is 26 versus 19.
26 versus 19. Okay.
Yeah.
I think the reason that most people would see that as disrespectful is if you're bringing up that many women are mentally ill. I think there's an implication that that is like way far off of the standard percentages of men, but 26 and 19% aren't that crazy. That's not a crazy separation, but
It is a problem, though.
sure. But I mean, no, I don't think if you were debating with your friend over whether or not being mentally ill is a problem, I don't think there would be any debate there.
Well, people have told me that I shouldn't be able to vote just because I'm a Trump supporter.
Well, I mean, I don't
Do you
agree.
think
No, I don't agree. You should be able to vote, but I think that Trump supporters are actually probably the strongest argument against democracy as a system, because like the hardest answer for people who believe in democracy to answer, or the hardest question for people who believe in democracy to answer, is should we be able to democratically vote our democracy away? And I don't know the answer to that, but
can we do that? Can
it,
we even do that?
it would have to be like a referendum to terminate the Constitution or anything. But I'm saying that if we're electing someone who already tried to disenfranchise multiple states,
Hmm.
you know, it's kind of hard for me to say that
Just the states that he thought had voter fraud in them.
the 7 swing states, it was like Georgia, Arizona, New Mexico,
Michigan.
Michigan, yeah.
Hmm. Well, it would be weird that this red wave that we saw would have happened last time. But I'm not going to say that it should have or did.
Well,
But
I think it's pretty clear why it happened is because Donald Trump's covering of COVID was very unpopular, so people wanted to get him the fuck out of the office. And then the inflation that we saw under Joe Biden was wildly unpopular, so people wanted to get his administration the fuck out of office, and the alternative was Donald Trump. So I think and people have nostalgia glasses for what was 4 years ago. So I think all of the trends make sense. I just wish it didn't unfold the way it did.
do you think Kamala Harris was a good candidate at all?
I think her campaign was decent, but obviously not my favorite. I think she was a little further left than I was. I think a lot of her ideas on econ were kind of silly. But
Do you
this is
agree that she had a little communistic views, like slightly?
No, I wouldn't say that.
Hmm.
But I don't think anybody. I don't think there's almost a single like elected person in the U.S. right now that has communistic views.
There was the Socialist Party that said that they voted for her.
I'm sure, and if you said that she leaned towards like democratic socialism, that'd be a different question than communism. But yeah, I mean, yeah.
Doesn't socialism always turn into communism?
Yeah, but the argument would be that there hasn't actually been a truly communist nation, so it's hard to tell. Like, but also, I think all of those terms, I think socialism and communism as terms are completely fucking vapid and useless. I don't think they mean almost anything.
Yeah, but the thing is that the Communist Manifesto is a thing, and it's kind of scary reading it and seeing like some implementations of it in our society.
Well, you're probably going to see some implementations of it in our society, regardless of who's president. We live in a mixed market economy right now. You're never going to see like a purely capitalist economy in today's America, even under Donald Trump.
Would you get rid of CRT in schools?
CRT in schools. It depends if we're talking about actual critical race theory, like that was proposed in like the college campuses, or if we're talking about like the bastardization of it.
Race theory being taught in colleges in some schools.
That's I'd have to look at the specific policy. I don't care about big like grand platitudes or whatever. I don't care about CRT. I don't care about socialism. I don't care about like fucking. I care about what is the policy you're proposing. What is its effect on the people? I don't care about like people saying that like, oh, Kamala Harris supports open borders, because that doesn't mean anything. Or like Donald Trump supports closed borders, that doesn't mean anything. Or like, or saying Kamala Harris supports CRT, like that. The reason that whenever people talk about policy positions, they always go to these quick one-liner quips is because if you were to actually give what the policy lays out, I don't even think it would be that unpopular. Like if by CRT we're talking about, oh well, black people are still facing the effects of slavery today. I mean, that seems almost obvious to me. I don't know why we wouldn't teach that. But if we're talking about CRT and that like white people are the devil or whatever, I'd be like, okay, obviously I don't support teaching that in schools.
Mhm. Because right now my nephew is learning about the slave trade, and he's going to a Christian school. Like he's learning about like the Eastern slave trade and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very interesting because when I went to school, I had a very basic um run through of the civil rights movement and all that. And there are some things that are like, yeah, that riot should be taught in schools, or like this thing happened and it should be noted and instead of forgotten through the annals of time. Um but yeah, making race a very like an important thing is stupid to me.
I think it depends, but I mean, I'm not
Yeah.
really interested in a when it comes to what just happened in this election. This is the line that I used a lot in those TikTok lives, is that I don't see the point in having like a very technical conversation about whose capital gains tax is better between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump when Donald Trump poses an authoritarian threat to the country. I don't care about his tax plan. I don't care about the economy. I don't care about CRT. I don't care about trans people in bathrooms. I care that in 4 years, our nation's government is going to be recognizable. That's mainly what I'm concerned with. Whenever the Republicans decide to put up somebody who isn't like fucking insane, like even if the race was JD Vance and Tim Walz, I would have had more substantial policy conversations, because JD Vance, whether or not I think he's a grifter or like dishonest or not, I think he is actually capable of having that conversation, and I don't think that he would actually threaten the state of our country like Donald Trump does, because I think Donald Trump is actually just unhinged. I think he's insane. But if the election was Harris Vance, I still probably wouldn't vote for Vance. I don't even know if I'd vote in that election period. But no, I'd probably vote for Harris just because of the climate change stuff. But regardless, I would have had a much more easy time having a solid policy conversation if the options weren't a very bog standard kind of further left Democrat or Donald Trump.
Yeah. Well, this was a very nice conversation. I enjoyed this.
Okay, I enjoyed it too. I mean, anytime that I can have a conversation that isn't just a screaming match is good. I initially started the stream, one, because I knew that it would have a lot of views, because conservatives are really eager to tell people, or to tell liberals that they lost, but also like create engagement for the channel. Two, because I had a debate that was initially scheduled with somebody else, but he not backed out, it's just delayed. And then, which is funny because I had two different debates scheduled for today, and one backed out, one delayed. So I mean, it happens.
Well, I hope those dudes come up.
The one won't. Because, the one won't. But the other will. The other will, but it will be a screaming match.
One thing that I really love is to listen to people talk. I love listening to people talk. I never, like, this is really the first time. I've done it before, like I've had debates before, but this is the first time in my life that I started wanting to engage. Like I'm very nonverbal. Like if you hung out with me, I would not talk. Like you would probably be creeped out at how little I speak to you. But because I never think that I have anything relevant to say. But and experiencing that with my friends just solidified that I should not talk. But it was just my feelings got hurt, and I just wish that my friends would have been a little bit less aggressive with me.
Yeah. Well, listen, I appreciate you stopping by. I appreciate you joining in. I know most of the people who are really mad in my chat didn't have the courage that you did to jump in, so I appreciate it. It was a good talk. If you
I
want to
didn't
stick
want
around,
you to be bored. I
yeah.
didn't want you to be bored, man.
If you stick around and you ever have a disagreement with me, just at me in the Discord and I'll set up a time. I'm always down to talk about if it's a topic that interests me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
Like
appreciate you stopping
literally,
in.
I'm literally hungry to game. I haven't been doing anything. I haven't been listening to music. I haven't been playing video games. I haven't been doing anything. I was
Locked in.
really like
Locked in.
I was just watching. Yeah,
Um,
I was just watching.
but yeah, I think I'm gonna watch the Trump acceptance speech, and then I'm going to go watch pro wrestling.
Oh, good, dude. Just chill, man. Just everything's over.
Uh,
We just
it's not over until Donald Trump's out of office, but
well, I
we'll just see how
disagree,
bad it is.
but we will agree to disagree
Yeah.
and leave this in a very civil and very respectful way.
Yeah.
And that's how I want every conversation to end.
Yeah, for sure. Just let me know if you have any other disagreements, and I'll be happy to talk.
Yeah, dude.
All right.
Peace out, man.
Yeah,
You're a
have a
good
good one.
boy. You're a good man. You're a
Thank
good
you.
man.
Thank you.
Peace out.
Yep. See ya. All right. That went marginally better than I expected it to. I was kind of hoping that one of the more, combative ones would have joined, but I like the conversation that we had. Okay.